that quotation, and by the way, that's been said by Winston Churchill and Bobby Kennedy, the father of the Robert Kennedy that's running for president on a third-party ticket today, and a bunch of other people. But the other part of that is a terrible form of government, but it just happens to be the best one we've been able to come up with yet. So I hope that you will embrace that idea, and if you question it, question it. But dig into the facts, just don't assume that something else is better without looking at it and understanding it. So, on that basis, is there somebody that's got a dying thing, that's a subject you want to talk about? Otherwise, all right, go ahead.
Justice system.
Come on, stand up so they hear you.
The justice system has been used as a political weapon by the left, on the left in recent years.
Oh boy, we're starting out with a political. Oh. So you're asking if they agree or disagree, or you're stating that?
Because we saw
Guys,
the Justice Department, they dragged their feet with the investigation of Hunter Biden's laptop. They ignored stuff that would have been bad for Biden's campaign. Basically, they're letting Joe Biden get off scot-free.
Okay, remember, this is a free country. People are entitled to just about any opinion that they want to have. But what I want you to do is be able to back up opinions with facts. If you were in my college class and you made a statement, you know what you'd get? Why? Why? Because I don't care about just your opinion. You're supposed to learn to be able to back it up with facts. You okay.
Hunter Biden was just charged with all of.
Stand up and so they can hear you for sure.
He was just charged with all of the accounts that he was being charged against. So I don't understand where that they're dragging their feet and trying to avoid charging them. It's not even election season yet, and he has been charged along with Trump.
Okay, we're not going to change the opinion of people that are locked in on something. So let me ask you the little deeper question. Go back, go past the fact that you think a particular person or party has been persecuted. What about our system? What about our system versus other countries and other systems? Do we do a good job of trying to protect people, or is there some other things we should be doing?
So I just want to say, in terms of like the justice system in general, the United States is one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, which is ironic considering it's the land of the free. So that's
why do you say it's ironic?
Well, if it's about freedom.
So if we have freedom, you don't go to jail no matter what.
Well, I'm just saying that it's ironic that if you're able to be free, or our idea of more being able to free and choose, that they're being imprisoned.
So what's your solution? We're just going to release the people that got convicted?
Well, there's
That's a major crime issue.
I don't understand.
I think that is a crime. Let's get some more comments on this. Hey, let's listen one guy at a time.
Okay, so for like the incarceration rate thing, a lot of other countries don't have the same like level of democracy that we do. So people have the chance to commit crimes, which is part of their freedom. That's their decision, and that's why they're getting incarcerated. But people from like other certain places, like say Russia, are not going to be committing crimes out of fear of the government because of the communist dictatorship style. And also they kill more people than they incarcerate.
I was just gonna say that compared to like some other like governments in the world, our jailing system focuses more on like punishment than rehabilitation.
What does it take to be put in jail in this country versus a totalitarian or authoritarian country? Think about that.
A lot more.
A lot
more. It's fair. It takes less.
An actual legalization.
I want somebody that wants to answer. Hey guys, one conversation please. I'd like somebody to address that question. What does it take to get incarcerated and be put in jail in this country versus other countries?
I'd like to nominate my friend Chris.
So
this country, in order to go to jail, is a jury of your peers. So basically, other American citizens who are basically your equals, a large group of them to all say that you're guilty. And only in that situation can you go to jail for a crime. And then in other countries like Russia or like places like China, that doesn't happen that way.
Okay.
The court system is much more, if we think you did the crime, you are guilty. And in America, you have the benefit of the doubt. You are innocent until proven guilty.
Okay,
In other countries, you are often guilty until proven innocent.
okay, want to talk about indictment? Huh?
I forget what indictment.
All right,
As in, like, you need the.
the police can charge you with a crime. That doesn't mean you're gonna be tried.
Oh, right.
You
you
have
need
to
a
be
grand jury.
indicted
Yeah.
by a panel of your peers, like a trial jury. And so there's all kinds of things to protect you. If you don't have counsel, the government will pay for the counsel. So this is not a political question, Democratic versus Republican. This is a question of what we have in the United States of America, where we have a Constitution, a Declaration of Independence, and we have amendments. It's that Constitution that guarantees you certain protections. And I would suggest to you, don't believe me, look it up for yourself, learn a lot more. But that we better protect people in this country than almost anywhere in the world. Yeah.
I would just like to add on what you said. In the United States, laws that are brought upon here are agreed upon by, for the most part, by the people. Whereas in countries like Russia, they don't have that voice, so they aren't able to.
Who sets the laws? What branch of government?
Legislate.
Okay, that's when we have a legislature. If you're gonna have a law, it's gotta be passed in the a federal law. It's gotta be passed in the legislature. State law, it's gotta be passed in the House and the Senate.
To add on with what it takes to be put in prison here, you have to actually be accused of something. They have to tell you what you did wrong. Whereas in other countries, they can just say, "Oh, you did something, we're gonna put you in prison." Here they have to tell you.
You know a current
exactly
example of that? Do you know a current example of that? But you guys know that there's a Wall Street Journal reporter. He's been incarcerated in Russia for a year. He was just indicted yesterday. Just indicted yesterday. They just charged him yesterday. And when they're gonna actually have the trial, that's a lot different than our system. Are we perfect? Have people that maybe were innocent been put in jail? Probably. Yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible, given the number of people. But you're innocent until proven guilty in this country, and you got a better chance of getting justice here than anywhere else.
Oh, okay. I would like to say that in America, we have a constitution that protects us from arbitrary punishment from the states. For example, the First Amendment allows us to criticize the government and allow us to criticize the politicians themselves. And plus, we got the Fifth and Sixth and Seventh Amendments that are able to protect us, such as during trial, such as I should plead the Fifth when I don't want to come during court. And places like North Korea, they have a bunch of arbitrary punishments, such as you cannot criticize the state there, and you can't bring any material, religious material, or play any songs that the state does not approve, and they will beat the life out of you. They will not show you any mercy there in North Korea.
Okay, thank you. Right back here.
Although this is mostly in response to talking about how we have the people choose the law. Although I agree that yes, obviously that's true, and it's in a lot of countries. It's definitely better than a lot of countries. For example, like Russia, an authoritarian country. Yeah, I also just wanted to make sure it wasn't overstated in the fact that there's still a lot of outside forces that the people don't control, private interests with lobbying and such. That still make it so it's not really directly by the people, which also can.
Not directly by the people. It's by the people's representative. That's a republic, not a democracy.
I mean, it's in not even not directly
Okay.
in that sense, but in the fact that there's also the private interests outside just the elected people.
You just raised a question about
Lobbying.
lobbyists. Let's come back to that in a minute. You implied that because there's lobbyists, some people don't get a good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Somebody over here had their hand up for a while, sir.
I just want to add a little footnote to the
Nice and loud so
incarceration.
we can all hear you.
There is partially a reason for why we have a much higher incarceration rate than other countries, and that is due to the fact that there are a lot of private prisons that are incentivized to keep prisoners in to get like money or to keep the prison running. So therefore, that would lead to more people being like incarcerated in general. So.
Anybody got a response to that? You were just response to that?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'd like to say that in the U.S. we have a lot higher budget for a police system, which leads to a lot higher of our incarceration rate. And if say you think a place like Jamaica, which has a very low funding for the police force, and they have one of the highest murder rates in the world, they don't. People who commit most of the crimes do not get arrested there because they don't have funds to keep them in jail or arrest them in the first place.
Okay.
Especially in third world countries where they can't get funding for that. Those rules will run rampant without any prosecution.
Okay. Response to that? Yes, please.
I genuinely don't know, but how exactly is it that if a jail is private, how would that incentivize more incarceration? The jail itself isn't the one putting people in the system.
Should I?
Yeah, you can respond to that. I just was wondering.
So what I meant by that is that they're a private like company or no, sorry,
Yeah.
private jail, right? So the government will give them money to exist, right?
Right.
So when they have people in jail, they have to reach a like minimum requirement of people who are actually incarcerated. So therefore, if they keep people in, even if they're like good people or if they've been really rehabilitated, they have to keep a certain amount of people in to still get that money or those grants.
Alright.
So therefore, that's a higher rate of in general incarceration.
So is it?
I'm sorry, when they proposed the question of higher incarceration, did they mean people who are like actively put in prison or actively in prison?
Number of people, higher incarceration generally means number of, go ahead, I think you want to respond to that more.
So I guess kind of my question is what powers do the jails have? Because I guess you could keep them in for longer to some extent, just by like not giving them a shorter sentence based off of their behavior. Is that what you're saying is the problem?
Yeah,
Or
so,
you,
so prisons can kind of make up whatever they want to keep you in. They can give you an infraction or whatever, and therefore they can give those reasons to keep you extended for as long as they need you to be. And until your time is ready for them to let you leave, you can just be stuck in there.
alright. Do you know I don't know statistics. Do you know if there are any statistics that like show that America has high rates of infractions put on people who are in jail?
Not on me right now,
Alright, yeah,
but yeah, like
Just a minute. Thanks, guys. This is a good example. The wonderful thing in this country is we can disagree, and we can talk about it. But we got to talk about it civilly, which doesn't always happen nowadays. I want to recommend to you, in the rest of your life, as you go to your senior year in high school, if you go into college, critical thinking. It's wonderful to have an opinion, but back it up with facts. The first thing, if I were arguing with you, and you have a right to your opinions, the first thing I'd ask you is, don't you realize that it's the court that sets the sentence, and it's the court that sets when they can be paroled. The jail doesn't determine that. But, again, you gotta have facts to back up your opinion, or otherwise we don't ever get anywhere. But all of these things are open. You guys are gonna change the world. Every blasted group, when I grew up, when everybody grows up, we're gonna change the world. Go out there and do it. But in order to do it, you gotta have some facts behind it. Sir?
Can I just add to the conversation?
Yes.
So what you had said about private prisons being kind of a not necessarily nefarious interest group, but what you're saying isn't entirely untrue. It's just that I think what you were getting at is the fact that the details of what you said are not entirely true. So it's not that the prisons are keeping them there. Essentially what it is that those private prisons are given state funding, whether it's federal or state, I don't know how it works exactly. Excuse me. But essentially what happens is they're paid to maintain a certain number of inmates, and if they're able to expand, what happens is they get more money, they are paid more taxpayer dollars, and then they in turn feed that back into the legislative system by lobbying with Congress in order to potentially pass laws that are stricter, have harsher punishments, so that they can continue a cycle of growth, basically. So does that clear up some of the confusion there?
That makes sense.
That's basically what it is. It's not
Okay.
fractions
I-
per se.
I don't want to cut you off. I would like to cover a number of subjects. Thank you very much. That's a good discussion, guys. You raised a question back there about lobbyists.
And yeah, oh, so can we say that?
So you want to eliminate lobbyists?
Well, I guess what I think is that okay. I think that lobbying, I guess I think as a whole, like a lot of private interests in lobbying is okay. Sorry, I'll restart that. I think that lobbying should be like we should try reducing it. Obviously, it's a very very hard thing to do, but I think it would make it more democratic.
You ever called your congressman?
Yeah, I mean okay. I mean
Have
like,
you?
as in, like fun. Like,
Have
fun.
you?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No.
You haven't. Maybe your parents? You know
I
some
know.
people perhaps that have called?
I
You're lobbyists if you're doing that. That's basically what a lobbyist is doing.
Yeah.
I think what you're concerned about is abuses of the lobbying, where they might be getting paid influence and things like that. And that's what we need laws for. And there are laws. We need to be sure that they're enforced.
Yeah, I think like more like the path, like the big ultra. Yeah. Like,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I wanna add on to the thing about lobbying.
Okay.
There's several times where big corporations lobbying comes against the interests of the American people. And like and the example that I'm gonna bring up is Intuit, which is a company that owns like TurboTax and stuff. They lobby, I think last year, like something like $50 million to keep, to like prevent the government, it's launching this year. But for over a decade, they've been trying to like prevent taxes becoming easier to do. So like people would have to pay like companies like TurboTax to do their taxes, like stuff like that, where like where companies are actively attempting to make like legislation that would help the American people not happen.
Okay, I think your point would be more effective if you said, I think there are companies who take positions that are not, in my opinion, are not good for the American public. Because I guarantee you, those employees of TurboTax and all their stockholders thinks that that's a good position. And I appreciate it, and you have every right to think it's the wrong position. But remember, that's what we're talking about, a free country. People have the right to have different opinions. We gotta try and work them out. Yes, sir?
I have a question. Can I start a new debate?
Huh?
Can I start a new debate? Can I
Yes,
start a
sir.
new debate?
Yeah, you bet.
Alright.
Sir.
Has anybody ever like actually looked up of how much our country is actually in debt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then why are we still giving Ukraine $175 billion when we are here? I have a debt clock right here.
Yeah.
It
It's big.
goes up by the second.
Okay. All right, but your question could just as well be, why are we spending money on this?
Yeah.
But you made it specific to Ukraine as an argument
Yes.
against Ukraine because we're in debt.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we should.
Anybody want to respond to that?
Okay, so the most recent appropriations bill, which was $160 million, you remember that one a couple months ago? Most of that bill was not money to Ukraine directly. This was money to defense contractors, to shipbuilders. Raytheon gets money. It was American jobs. So far recently, Texas itself, Dallas, Texas, has gotten 3 new artillery manufacturing plants, making new 155mm artillery shells. Those are American jobs, and it's money going into the American economy. And what we've been sending Ukraine, we paid for that.
But we're still
back in
sending
the 80s.
troops over there.
We are.
And we're
not
sending troops over there.
Yeah, we're
Raise your hand if you want to talk.
I've looked a lot into this. Most of the troops, like in 2022, like we're sending American troops to Ukraine. Those were American special forces who were going to guard the embassy if Russia overran Kyiv, which did not happen. And any troops currently in Ukraine are logisticians, making sure there's no corruption going on. What we do give them is going to the Ukrainian military.
Okay. I think your position is you don't want any more money to go to Ukraine, right?
Right.
Okay. Anybody got a different idea and why? We get both of them, you want me back to you?
So, real quick, my response to you is basically, I see this as an investment that's actually going to save American money. Our biggest adversaries right now in the world are Russia and China. And right now, our military spending is very high, and if we spend only $175 billion to cripple the Russian military, that's a huge investment for a huge payout, right? Like, we spend over $1 trillion in the military every year. If we're only gonna pay like $0.175 billion every year, or $1 trillion every year, to try to completely cripple the Russian military, one of our biggest adversaries we otherwise would have to pay a ton of money to maintain an army for, I think that's a great investment of our funds.
You have a good point there, I'll listen to that.
By the way, our military spending right now has been going down for about 10 years. It's not that high right now, as a percent of gross domestic product.
It's still over
Well,
$1 trillion.
again,
so
what's high, what's low, it depends on,
Right.
but it has been going
It's
down.
about relative to the $175 billion, it's much higher, so that's why it's considered a true investment.
Do you have something?
So,
Who else had their hand up? All right, you did, that's just one thing.
So, with the idea of us, like, as you said, were you thinking we're wasting money? Is that kind of what you were?
Kind of.
Okay.
But you had a good point, I will say that.
Yeah, I agree, and kind of to add on to his point, I guess, is not just crippling Russia's military.
But it's also a gamble.
No, because Ukraine is referred to as the breadbasket of, is it Europe or just
The basket of Europe.
Okay, Europe is huge in exports, and Ukraine is also huge in exports. And because of us being part of the NATO and like the UN and stuff, we have to keep the entirety of our allies' interests in our minds. So because commerce goes between all these different groups, if Ukraine gets taken, Russia can take all their exports, raise prices, enforce taxes, tariffs, anything like that they want, which is going to then further cripple all other economies, and it's going to cost money, taxes are going to be raised, and we're going to lose, like the individual as well as the government is going to lose a lot of money.
Okay, thank you, by the way, for bringing up starting an excellent discussion. We've got two more, you're next, sir. Try to keep your answers as short as you can, so we get a lot of people to talk.
I just want to go back to your point of the private prisons. It's a complex topic, but I mean, it's a very interesting theory, but I find some problems with that since, according to law professor John Platt from Fordham University, he points out the problem with the private prison theory, where he points out that 80% of prisons here are public, 20% are private, and also some states don't even have private prisons. I forgot what the state was, maybe it was Tennessee, but they still have high incarceration rates there. And also, you have to realize that with the lobbyist theory, is that public unions still have interest in having high incarceration rates. Because let's say you have your prison population decline in half, you're going to lose jobs there, and it's your interest as the union to help protect your job and make sure you have income for your family, stuff like that. And also, I remember seeing this study in the Journal of Criminology where they look at repeat offenders for private and public prisons. They basically have the same exact rates. Private prisons don't have an increased rate, but they both have similar rates. And also with the lobbyist theory, economist John Lott has pointed out that politicians just generally have similar interests. Like lobbyists will generally try to pay a politician they agree with. After all, it's very difficult to change a person's mind. So that's why you would try to target a candidate that already agrees with you, since it's just easier to do that.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something else you want to add?
Well, I just kind of wanted to say that the point that I brought up was based on a video that is credible that I watched a while back. So some of the stuff I said could either be A, outdated, or B, I might be misremembering. So I could.
Was it on TV?
What?
Was it on TV?
Yeah.
Where'd you get it?
You know the show Adam Ruins Everything?
Okay.
Adam's not really an expert in that.
Okay.
He
He's experts too.
he makes a lot of mistakes.
Guys, bear in mind that you can find almost any opinion in any position that you can name. Some of the media somewhere because of the social network. So you've got to learn to be very discerning about what you believe. Don't just accept anything that you see. I want to say one more thing about this thing on the Ukraine, because I have a personal interest in that. I served for 2 years on the East-West German border at the height of the Cold War. That's right in the middle of Vietnam. Now my brothers who served in Vietnam lost 58,000. 58,000 men died there. And what happened? We lost. We lost. North Vietnam took over South Vietnam, which was its original intention. On the other hand, we invested in NATO and Europe, and we put people on the borders with Russia, and we made it clear that we would not allow them to come into Western Germany. We won. The Iron Curtain came down in 1990. So that would be one of the arguments I would make to you, why that's important that we support the Ukraine. If we let Russia go through grabbing the Ukraine, they won't quit there, in my judgment. Okay, you haven't said anything yet. Yes, sir.
Just with Ukraine, I think we are doing a pretty good job.
Nice and loud now.
I think we're doing a pretty good job of providing money to Ukraine, that's relevant, not a NATO ally. They are an ally with us, but they're not part of NATO. So we are providing a lot more than we are required to. It obviously is of Russia's interest to take over Ukraine, but we are doing a lot for them, sometimes more than necessarily necessary. They are getting a lot of our equipment, but most of the equipment that they are fighting with is also Soviet-era equipment against other Soviet-era equipment. Russia may be one of the strongest countries in the world, but they're still using equipment from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and so is Ukraine. That is the only argument I can get with why we are sending money and supplies over there.
Okay.
I kind of want to talk about like a new tax policy I think the government should do, and that's where
The
they
new tax law?
a new like money that the government can spend.
You want to create more money? Give
No,
them-
so I want what I think the government should do is they should only spend as much money as they got in taxes the previous year, so to slow the increase in U.S. debt.
Wow. Wow. When's the last time we had a balanced budget? We only spent what we took in that year. Clinton, during the Clinton administration, I think, if I remember that right. Boy, you just raised an issue that is really left versus right. Almost everybody will agree that deficit spending at time of war is absolutely necessary. The question becomes, when is it not necessary, and when is it, how much harm does it do to the society, to the economy? And these are very difficult questions. We'll take economics in college and get deeply into that.
So I would just like to say something on the topic of the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia has nukes, and one of you said that, oh, we can fund Ukraine, and then maybe Ukraine will win and they'll cripple the Russian military. If we do that, and Ukraine survives the war and still has a fighting force, and when they cripple the Russian military, hypothetically, and they're going to invade Russia, because Russia currently is wiping out most of Ukraine. And Russia has nuclear weapons that could straight up start a nuclear conflict. I personally see no feasible solution where Ukraine wins. Because if they do win, everyone loses, at least in my mind. And if they lose, then they lose. And Russia ends this.
To sum it up, you don't think Ukraine can win, and therefore you don't think we should spend any more money to support it? Is that, I don't want to misspeak on your position.
Hey, John.
There's another couple things.
Sure.
We are spending the most money on Ukraine currently. We aren't over in Europe. We are over in the other hemisphere. Why aren't the other countries in Europe spending as much money or more than we are?
Okay. Gotcha.
If they really care about their own throttle, Russia's going to give us a hit.
You want to respond to that? Okay.
Okay, so first off, on the spending, the European Union and especially the Baltic countries, if you take by percentage of GDP, the Baltics have put whole percentages into Ukraine's defense. The EU handling the economic side of things, have poured billions of dollars into Ukraine's economy. And on Ukraine invading Russia, I do not see that happening. The official stance of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense is they will not attack into Russia. Now, there are exemptions to this. The Russian Foreign Legion has made small raids into Russia. They've never made a full-blown invasion. But Ukraine's stated goal is to retake the Donbass and to retake Crimea. They are not going to invade Russia. They have no reason to invade Russia. It is not good for them politically. And on Ukraine not being able to win, Russia has had 3 years to take out Ukraine. And in that time, they lost in offenses in Kyiv. They lost Kherson. They lost Kharkiv. So far, the Russian Air Force just got hit 400 kilometers away from Ukraine. Russia's 5th generation fighter just took a hit from a drone. Russian AWACS assets, these giant airborne radars, none has ever been taken out in combat. Ukraine has taken out 2. The Russian army, with new orders to strike into the Belgorod region, is able to take out the Russian army in Russia. And whenever Russia tries to attack, they are met with a swarm of drones and artillery, which has meant, I think, 10 past offensives have all failed horrendously for Russia and has left tanks in the field.
See, if you said something like that in Ukraine and Russia got a hold of you, where do you think you'd be? You'd be in jail, right? And by the same token, what your position was, take it to another country, you could end up in jail. What a wonderful thing that we can talk about these things. And you guys can run for office and you can have an influence.
So, sorry about my voice, it's really raspy. What I'd like to say on Timothy's point about Russia having nuclear weapons is Russia will never fire a nuclear weapon because if they do, all of NATO and all of the United States will just rain hell on Russia and just wipe out Russia, and there's also no need for Ukraine to invade Russia. So it's like...
Called mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, pretty much.
Heard that term? Nobody wants to fire the first one because if they fire all of them, we all got a big problem. Big problem. Okay, let's try and go on to another subject. Okay, I'll take 2 more questions on this thing.
Okay, so Ukraine currently, one of their main goals that they cannot currently complete because of their state of warfare with Russia is joining NATO because that's going to protect them. I think genuinely, if they cripple Russia, NATO is not going to see Russia as big of a threat as they currently do, and the war will cool off at least a little bit on Ukraine's side while they try and join NATO, because if Ukraine quits advancing into Russia, they have a chance at being able to join NATO, and if the entirety of NATO goes up against a crippled Russia, it's most likely going to be on the NATO side that a victory happens, so I genuinely don't think Russia would pursue that as a conflict. They'd be very upset and say they would, but I don't think they would truly go into the conflict.
Okay.
Shift the topic.
Huh?
Can I shift the topic?
Sure.
Something a little more domestic. Politicians are generally seen as like old men, but I don't think it's.
Be careful now. You're looking at one.
I don't think it's the fact that they're old that's the issue. I think it's the fact that they've been in office forever that's the issue. Yes, I think the amount of connections that they have, yes, that makes them a good candidate for their party. But I think it also slows down the process of passing new laws and getting things done in Washington.
So you're concerned about the age profile of people in office and the number of the amount of time they've spent in office?
Yeah, more the amount of time they spend.
More than the amount of time. Okay, anybody want to comment on that? Yes.
I feel like, as far as you like people who can spend more time in office because then they can have a lot.
So I can hear you.
I feel like you would usually want people who have longer time in office, that way they have a lot of experience, not going to start them at a younger age. Like I know recently we've had the first Gen Z congressman, I think 26 was voted into office recently. So I feel like having younger people like that put into Congress and eventually into more powerful positions would be a lot more beneficial, because eventually it'll be younger and younger generations will have more of a say, and you'll be able to have the same connections with younger ages.
Okay, so you want more younger people in office. What do you want to do to make that happen? Can you be a congressman at 25? Yeah. Well, why aren't there more of them?
Because I feel like a lot of people run for who they know because they see it.
So we're talking about who votes for who. You gotta go influence the voters to your position. Okay, on this topic?
Yeah.
Time in office or age of people?
I don't know what topic I want to talk about.
Huh?
I don't know what topic I want to talk about.
Okay, in a minute, we'll get to it. On this topic.
Yeah, so what I'd like to say about that is that there's not really a chance because they've been in office for so long for anyone else to like run because of how much support and money that they're getting to constantly keep running. So let's say that you wanted to run against your local person, you'd have to get like these PACs, and that goes into that one issue that we were talking about earlier. PACs and lobbyists. It goes into the PACs and lobbyists thing that, you know, sometimes helps and sometimes hurts.
Okay, it's also a matter of name recognition, which is why politicians who are widely known to the public, people could run for office. The most famous one is John Kennedy. He ran for office initially in the U.S. Congress, and by the way, he served 2 terms. He wasn't considered a good congressman. He was considered a playboy for most of the time he was there. But he had name recognition. His dad had been the ambassador to Great Britain in World War II and had a big fight with Roosevelt. The family was well known, and they had tons of money to buy advertising. So name recognition means a lot in terms of trying to get elected. Is that bad? That is, well, in a sense, yeah. Wouldn't we like to elect the most qualified person?
Yes.
But I tell you what, this is the system we have. Now, you guys can make it better, but just complain about it won't change it. And you've got to have real, concrete propositions that will make a difference, and you've got to convince people, enough voters, to make a difference. On this topic?
Yeah. I think it's, yeah, because look at Joe Biden, he's been in politics since, what, the early 70s, late 60s? Having a young person.
The president has spent his whole life in elected office.
Yeah, since, like, yeah, 70s. Times has changed since the 70s, too. We need someone that's, like, more, I don't know, modern, that have new ideas, different ideas, rather than, like, Joe Biden, for example, who's running on the same ideas as he did back then, too.
And, you know what? So what do you want to do about it?
I don't know, we need younger people.
All right, all right.
I think I can trust the younger generation.
Yeah.
Good to you?
I feel like something we can do is we can put like an age cap on how old we can be to run for president. That way, once you get above a certain age, just to make sure that you're still mentally able and more connected with the amount of younger generation that will be in our country, you can truly represent them to the best of your ability if you have people above a certain age.
We can do that in other countries. You have to convince enough people that that's the right thing to do, and give enough good reasons to do it. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. On this topic, you 4, and then we're going to another one. In the back.
I think a lot of times, a lot of like this is caused, in my opinion, by like sort of the 2-party system, because the Democratic and Republican parties have so much money, they can help these candidates get name recognition and help fund their campaigns, which I think is also a lot of times what can lead these people that have been in politics their whole life to stay in office. And I think that sort of trying to like not even fully eliminate, I'm not saying, but like trying to weaken like the strict influence of just the 2 parties and allowing people from like other like more independent sources also having a better shot at like Congress positions and stuff. I think that could like help lower lessen the issue. But obviously with I think the electoral college does make that hard to do. And I'm not saying to get rid of the electoral college, but
Alright.
yeah.
At the end of the day, I do agree with the idea that young people should be more represented, but I guess the problem with that is just simple facts, because the exit polls consistently show that the national median voter age is somewhere between about 46 to even 49 years. So the fact is that old people vote at a greater rate than young people. So as long as that is true, there will be more older politicians in office. So the way you change that is you get young people to vote more. If you get more young people to care about civics, then there will be more young people who will represent the people who are civically minded. So I believe in the concept of young people, but we have to enact the change that we want to see in the world.
Don't forget this thing, right? BSNN, it's got 20, how many amendments?
27.
Well, we can add more amendments, but you have to get it done, and it's a process. You have to, first of all, you gotta get it passed as a Congress, and then it's gotta go out and be ratified by, I believe, 2/3 of the states. Okay, I said there was two more.
So the only thing I have to say about like the term limit or the age limit for that is that, you know, in some capacity that kind of takes away like democracy a little bit from the older people and the older generation, but like it shouldn't necessarily be age, it should be like, you know, mental capacity. So,
Okay, and you were, yes, you were. Come on.
Alright, so just to add to the like between the ages, we all can agree that like older people have more like experience in the when it comes to like the government thing. When like there is younger people that don't really have that much experience, but they're still looking at the like how the things are gonna be going. But when it comes to the older people, like they know what has been happening and they know what to fix. So we basically just fixing what is going on instead of what's gonna be going on. If you get what I'm saying.
And therefore, what?
Therefore, I think we should like just vote in the middle age instead of like older and younger. So it will be like 30s to 40s instead of like 25 or 80s to like 60s, you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Where's the gentleman want to change the topic? Yes. Up. Speak up for me.
I have an article about the protests, the pro-Palestine protests from the Wire on it.
Can y'all hear him?
Sam, can you repeat
That's a lie, not now.
At Chicago's Northwestern University, the administration negotiated a deal with protesters. The university agreed to hire 2 Palestinian faculty members and supply them each with 5 co-eds as wives, along with 2 alternate wives to replace any wives.
I'm not catching
Where
that.
did you find that?
Can you please repeat it?
What's the news source?
Daily Wire.
Yeah, that sounds fake.
Okay, what's the point you want to make out of the article?
We should not be negotiating with these protesters because they support the genocide of the Jews.
Be careful of general statements. I mean, if you can't take an article and make a broad generalization, precious. You may think that some of the protesters are, that are against the Jews, that are anti-Semitic, but when you make a general statement that they, oh, well, that's, you know, you gotta be more specific. We're not gonna convince you. Let's go on that topic because I did want to do that, and I'm gonna phrase it like this. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators are anti-Semitic and should not be allowed to protest. It is should not be allowed to protest. What do you think? Yeah, he's behind you. Yeah.
So, the right to protest is a right everyone in this country has. So saying someone should not be able to protest because of what they believe in is inherently against the ideas of this country.
In the Constitution. Okay, we got something that's clear, that's in the Constitution. We have the right to protest as American citizens. Now, okay, now how do you want to apply that to what's going on now?
Okay, so a lot of these protests on the college campuses, they are on college campuses, not public property. Or, like you can protest by the roadside, not in the road. You can't protest on private property, or you can't protest on private property until the person who owns the private property tells you to get off. They have been some of them have set up encampments on college campuses, and I believe most college campuses have told them to leave and to not set up encampments. If they haven't, then they can do that. As soon as they are told to leave, it's trespassing. So instead of trespassing, no longer have the right to protest.
Okay, so if I can summarize, and you correct me if I'm not quoting you right,
Okay.
they have the right to protest, but they can't for instance, they can't do it if they can't trespass or break other laws. They can protest peacefully where it's allowed. Okay? We'll come in, sir, I don't think you did.
I believe that protesting is part of our First Amendment rights. And it is up to you to decide what you think is right or wrong. And this goes for everything. Anything you say, you can say. You have the right to say it in this country. I don't care what it is. It's up to you. It is up to the other person to decide whether that is right or wrong. You can say anything. Now, whether or not that'll put you in jail or get you hated, that's not in that fine print. It directly says freedom of speech. So, at the end of the day, you should not allow anybody to protest anything, whether or not you believe it or not, because it is freedom of speech.
Okay, I think we've established one thing, that at least the majority believes they have the right to protest. Okay?
On what you said about them being anti-Semitic, just because they're anti-Semitic doesn't mean that they support the Holocaust. Like saying you can be anti-Semitic without supporting that. Like, there's nothing wrong with being anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic though.
What can you say? You're pro-Palestinian or anti-Semitic?
I ain't anti-Semitic, man.
You say you know what you're.
It's just, I'm not anti-Semitic.
Oh yeah. I think he said.
Poor word choice.
Does the protester have the right in this country to say, I don't like Jews and I think they should be deported? Yeah? Does the protester have a right to say that?
Yes, sir.
No, it may be prejudiced, biased, stupid, but they have a right in this country to say that. It's the old story, the thing is, you can say just about anything except you can't yell fire in a crowded room. Why? Because some people are going to get hurt and trampled. So you can't do things that injure somebody, but you can all done well disagree with them and say you don't like them and so on and so forth. And if they're a public figure, by the way, you can almost say anything, and because they're a public figure. Any more on that? Okay. Any other topic that's come in your mind you want to talk about? Well, let me carry that one step further. We've said you have the right to protest. We've said there's some limits as to what you can't do. Can somebody give me a solution of what you think we should do, whatever, let's say, college administrator, president should use as their guideline if there's a protest on their campus?
I think they should allow it as long as the protesters aren't calling for violence against the people they're protesting.
Okay, no violence, don't call for violence. That it? Okay.
Just no actual violence going on. If it's on a campus, just make sure that there's no sort of vandalism or something going on, because it's not really the whole of the campus what's going on in the global perspective. So you've got to really make sure that nothing like that's happening.
Okay.
All of the campus is harmed.
Does the college have a right to remove protesters from their property?
Yes.
Yes.
Have they always, does everybody, the protesters think so?
No, absolutely not.
Yes, sir. You start up with good controversy.
Portland, Oregon.
Go ahead.
I think that college campuses should allow protests as long as, like they said, they don't turn into violence or riots or anything like that. Some sort of thing that someone has.
Okay. Yes, sir. People charge.
Well, I would say, if I was a president of a university, I would say a rule of thumb is they must pay a deposit for the protest. Because, because some protesters could use it as excuse to damage some stuff of the university. So you need a deposit to help pay for the destruction of the university. Because some level of destruction would just bankrupt the entire university. So that's why, if you want to protest, you must pay a deposit for any accidents that could possibly happen.
Okay. Could a private institution do that? Sure. Yeah. You want to protest on my property? Now, of course, then they can go out in the street if they get a permit
and vandalism, right? Destruction of property. That's really where the problem is. But then if we look at a private institution, I'm in favor of the private institution allowing almost any opinion, same as the public institution, regardless of how stupid the position is within itself. And then I do, however, believe that if the university comes to the decision that they don't want this certain protest to be happening, they have the right to remove it.
Okay, okay. We have maybe 5 minutes or so. I want to introduce one more topic. So, the U.S. is fundamentally, structurally, a racist and imperialistic country. That was a very common position by Vietnam era protesters. I can't talk. And it's also not unusual with some of the current protesters. What do you think about that? Is the U.S. fundamentally, structurally, a racist, biased country?
I would say that no, the U.S. is not fundamentally racist or biased because if we look at the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, all things that help shape our country, nowhere in there does it say that one skin color is greater than another. In the very building blocks of our country, it says that all men are equal.
Okay. If I can find it quickly. Well, I won't go through it. Yes, the Constitution, the amendments clearly give everybody rights, and that they are not exclusive to any race or creed. Now, here's something I'd like you to remember in this key differentiation. Whether the country is fundamentally racist or structurally racist and biased is a function of what the country's laws and practices are. But that doesn't guarantee that each individual citizen of the country will abide by those. And believe me, from the time I grew up, and by the way, I went to school in the South. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, when U.S. troops integrated the University of Mississippi. There he is. Ole Miss, good old Ole Miss. Governor Ross Barnett stood in the doorway and said there will be no black people at Ole Miss. Okay, my point is, did we have a tremendous amount of racism, bigotry, and problems, and that it was legal, considered legal in many places? Yes, we did. Well, it wasn't consistent with what our Constitution and Declaration of Independence and our documents say, and we've gone out of our way to address that. It started way back 100 plus years ago, 150 years ago almost, with Abraham Lincoln. That's the difference. We've tried to address it. I would submit to you, we've done a heck of a fine job of doing that. Are we done? Will you ever convince every single individual that I don't like guys with long hair? So I'm throwing you out of my school, or you can't be in my restaurant, right? You can't stop people from feeling that way personally. What we can do is say, that ain't legal, we don't allow it, okay? Yes, sir.
I just want to bring up the fact that we are the land of opportunity. I just want to bring up something personal a bit, I guess. Both my parents are immigrants. They both immigrated here to the U.S. And they've come literally from absolutely nothing to being able to own land, property, and to own things that they can get. My parents, they really didn't have too much down in Mexico where they came from, and they wanted to also not only provide for themselves, but to provide for their families. So, I really want to say that the U.S. is like racist or anything, but there was something else to your question, right? What was it?
Well, you just addressed a very important point, I think. You said the word opportunity. Our economy is a free market, private capital economy. We don't guarantee anybody an income. come. What we try to do is provide an opportunity for people. Now, that's a big argument between the parties and between various fractions within the party. How much do we guarantee to help people, and how much do we guarantee to give opportunity? You guys can wrestle that one. I guarantee you, you'll be wrestling with that one until you go to your grave. One or two more comments. Go ahead. Huh? I'm sorry. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of like support what you were saying, because it's not really the structure of the government itself that would be inherently racist. It's some of the policies that we've had that do that. Like there's, I mean, we had slavery that was legal in the country. That's one of the big ones. During World War II, there were Japanese internment camps. So it's not necessarily the government, like now, and the structure that we built. It's